Hello everyone, welcome to Leading with Agility, the show that uses the world around us to explore how leadership can be inspired by agility. I'm your regular host, Arif, and I'm joined by...
the regular co-host of TK, the Thought-Provoking Coach.
Thank you very much, TK. And in today's episode, we're joined by Carolyn Sheperd, to be precise. Welcome, Carolyn, to our show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
it's
you.
A pleasure
Delighted.
to have you. Yes, thank you. A pleasure to have you with us. I think we should start off with maybe, if you can, a brief introduction of yourself, who you are, what brings you to us today, why you're with us. We're excited to have you, of course, and it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Okay, well, I'm delighted to be here. You know that I'm an avid listener of the show. I really enjoy it. And my name's Carolyn Sheperd, as you said. I'm founder of Emmeline AI, and I'm a qualified barrister and HR professional turned trainer. And what I do in a nutshell is I help people squeeze every advantage out of AI. So that's the headline, Arif,
yes.
You know. But I suppose a bit more about my story is that I'm passionate about guiding women to take advantage of ChatGPT and similar conversational chatbots. I've got my reasons for that, which I'm sure we'll be exploring some of those topics today. My own productivity soared by 60% using ChatGPT, even as a complete beginner, when I didn't really know what I was doing. And it obviously, it transformed a few days' work into just a few high-quality hours. So that was the motivation. And I was so blown away by it. I wrote my book, The ChatGPT Advantage, Transform Your Life at Work, and managed somehow to do that while I was working full-time and get it up onto Amazon. And then in February 2024, I launched Emmeline AI because I thought, look, I can't keep juggling everything. So the idea was at the time, to help women skip the generational waiting room of many gender equity programs and fast track them off down to, to sort of the more equitable environment that I envisaged. But of course, that's all very utopian, I suppose. So
fascinating.
That's my story.
Brilliant.
But, that's so far, but it's not just women anymore. I've realized you've got to include men. And of course, why wouldn't we? So, but that's the story. Anyway.
That's a brilliant introduction. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for sharing that. There's so many things in there that we will, as you said, hopefully expand on in today's show. I think as the nature of our show and what we focus on, it would be interesting to kick us off by maybe hearing your thoughts on what leadership means to you, especially in the context that you're bringing, helping women, accelerate their career prospects through AI, the work you're doing through Emmeline, and maybe even your historic background in law and the legal profession. I don't know if you want to bring that in, but if you could introduce some thoughts to our listeners about what leadership means to you, and then let's take it from there. Thank you.
Well, okay. I mean, that's a very big question, actually.
I know.
I'm going to pick the bits out that I want, if
Please.
That's okay.
Of course.
I mean, to me, leadership really means inspiring others and constantly learning to be better at what you do. You've got to do that, and that in itself becomes inspirational to others. It's a respect for each other. There's a caring in there, of course, but it's about investing in each other, really. I suppose it's quite a mutual leadership model that I go for. But talking about leadership challenges now, I mean, in managing AI-driven change, it's absolutely huge. I come from a change management background. I do a lot of work with change management in HR in particular. My experience as a lawyer has equipped me for managing that quite safely and compliantly. But we've got all sorts of new challenges now with AI. And I think that's going to be huge for leadership to really grapple with that.
Definitely. Absolutely. And I think, what's really interesting is many people are comparing AI to the next, or the age of AI, to the next industrial revolution, right? It's such a big thing. And I'm wondering, in your mind, do you subscribe to this thought that it will be huge for the world of work? And why do you think so, if that's the case?
Well, I absolutely do think so. I think it's already happening. And you shared a very interesting article with me, Arif, which was by Mustafa Suleyman in Time magazine. Mm-hmm. And it's amazingly well written, of course, but it's, he is obviously, if some people might know that he is accredited with the deep mind phenomenon. So the guy knows what he's talking about. And what I really liked was to hear him saying what a lot of people are thinking so powerfully, which is these things won't be done in the same hallways that they were done before. The power is moving. The power has shifted. It's been completely democratized. And the reason for that is, in my view, is that because generative AI has been around for a long time. For quite a while, anyway, a few years. But it's the added magic of natural language processing, which means that we don't. I can now speak with the computer and tell it what I want it to do. I don't need a developer there to translate for me. So everybody can now chat to their computers to their heart's content and get what they want from them if they know how to craft a question. And it's just a case of speaking English. Well, any language, but plain language, whatever your language is.
That's a good point. But on the other hand, I have to say, and I think listening to our podcast, our listeners would know that we just don't take things for granted. There's a lot of skeptics around, right? And in fact, we've got one here. Arif is a bit of an AI skeptic, in my personal opinion. He is, right? So, but to give it a bit of a voice myself, there were many other technologies, like for instance, VR. Previously, that we all, or other kinds of 3D TVs that were a gimmick at the time, and they passed away, and no one's really talking about them as much as they had, right? Words like cloud, digital, vegan, although vegan is still popular, I guess. So I'm wondering, for an AI skeptic, how would you prove that the new era is actually incoming, right? Okay, talking to your computer, one would say you always could do that.
Could they? I don't know that they could say you could always talk to your computer and get an answer.
Well, you could always, always had not the answer, right? But there is some skepticism if it's a real thing, a really helpful.
But, sorry, Arif. Yeah.
No. Carry on. I thought maybe I can.
I was going to say, because the skepticism is there, and I quite understand that. But I think we need to think about this more along the lines of, the invention of electricity or the steam engine. We are talking about a new industrial revolution. I mean, I don't know if you remember when the internet came out.
Yes.
I can remember people saying there was going to be the paperless office. Oh, it's amazing! It's all going to be paperless office. But actually, for quite a few years, we consumed more paper because we printed everything out. Yeah. So there's no definite about what's going to happen, but we do know that the opportunity is there. It's democratized. Everybody can have a piece of the action now, and I think that's the difference, TK.
I just wanted, just on that point, because you said I'm a skeptic, and for our listeners' benefit, I think, and maybe Carolyn can comment as well. So my skepticism, TK, you know this, but the thing for me, you have this thought, TK, that we're not far off from it being sentient, right? That's your viewpoint on this. I completely reject that. I can't see that ever happening. Where there may be a level of mimicry, yes, but I cannot accept that it will surpass or equal human sentiism, or however you want to describe it. I don't buy that. So that's where my skepticism comes from.
Well, if I can jump in there, because you've got narrow intelligence and you've got general intelligence, and I think maybe that's where we're going with this conversation, and that is a huge rabbit hole for us to wander down, or scamper down, perhaps, because it's just so interesting. But really, there are some people, and I would agree with them, that actually it's a continuum. It isn't this is all narrow and then that's all general, where you've got your sentient approach. You're more, you're more genuine, if you like, learning something from scratch. kind of environment without being pre-trained on it. I don't think anything in life really be so easily categorized. And I think it's more of a continuum. And I think we'll slip into that, probably a lot less aware that we are actually slipping into it,
That's quite true. Change is sometimes slow and it's difficult to perceive it if you're a part of it, right? Like a frog in the water or a fish not seeing its own water. But the thing is, so we've done a lot of buzzwording about AI, but this podcast is not necessarily a technical one about it. What we're really interested in is how the world of work and leadership will change. What are the first changes we will actually see with this revolution for people's normal working lives? What do you actually think, Carolyn, on that?
Well, for people's normal working lives, the dream, of course, would be that we would be able to hand everything over. Well, not everything, but we'd be able to, let's talk about augmentation first of all, because I think that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be fully automated. I think our jobs are going to be augmented with the help of robots and computers. I'll probably stay off the robotics bit for a minute. Well, let's just talk about chatbots and things that we understand how they work, right? Well, what they do anyway. So let's assume we're talking about things that you can talk to, ask questions, help brainstorm answers to or thoughts, and you can get it to write your presentations for you in seconds rather than you writing it, slogging for it over it for days. And you might be accessing it through lots of different means. Some people, if you're in an organization that has Microsoft Office, then or Microsoft 365 as it is now, you're probably going to say that you're using it sprinkled over everything, including your PowerPoint and your Word and everything else, Excel and everything else. But if you're not in that position, you don't have Microsoft Copilot at your fingertips, you're probably instead going to be encountering it through ChatGPT or Claude, Anthropic, something like that, one of the others, if at all at first. But I would encourage people to definitely look at introducing some to their office environments with permission, of course, and with the safety guardrails on. But nevertheless, that is going to get people using it and realizing how useful it can be. It goes much further than just writing an email.
It does, right? Yeah. And you said you've improved your productivity 60%. So tell us a story about that.
Well, it was incredible. It was sort of just like it was like an epiphany, to be frank, because you couldn't, when you first put your questions in or you ask it to do something for you, you experience this wonderful moment when you realize, you think, oh, when's it going to start? When's it going to start? And you realize it's actually written it and you haven't pressed the down arrow to see what it's written.
Yeah.
So then I realized, oh, okay, I can use it for, let's say, just constructing an email, things that I'm not very good at doing, let's say, or might spend hours doing. I don't know if everybody feels differently about whether or not they slog over an email or they don't. For me personally, I hand wring, I'm wringing my hands over it before I actually send it off, because like some other people out there, I have experienced that awful feeling when you sent it and you didn't mean to and you realize that it's awful. When I realized how good ChatGPT was as writing these things for me, I was hooked. And I'll tell you how I knew it was because I actually got what I wanted from the email. The responder came back to me, the recipient came back to me and said, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. I thought, I've never had that response before that quickly. I'm doing this again. So I think that's it. You've got to it's like forming a habit, isn't it? When you get something good that you want, you get a taste for it and you do it again.
Okay, I get it, right? But on the other hand, I could argue that you could possibly get a, virtual or even physical copywriter on Fiverr, or, even get someone to work with you that's a publisher, an editor, that will be able to help you in a similar way. So where's the revolution here?
Okay, well, it's a fair point. If we wind the clock back a few years, I was doing exactly the same thing. In fact, when I published my book, I hadn't got a clue about what an EPUB file was or how to do that. So I went to one of the freelance sites like Fiverr, I think could easily have been that. And, I hired somebody who knew what they were doing and they did that for me. That was great. And now I still probably would do that as well, TK, because although I can go to ChatGPT and say, tell me how to create an EPUB file, it's probably going to tell me that I need a bit of software for it. And then I'm going to say, what software do I need? And it's going to say this. And then I'm going to find that I need to learn the software. I haven't got the time. So, of course, exactly. So that freelancer who's doing that work is still very valuable to me.
It's interesting, Carolyn, listening to your thoughts there around the debate around whether to use. There are other methods that are better than ChatGPT, to get your results you're looking for, and that is a conversation I don't think will ever end. We're always going to be competing with this idea of, are humans actually better at certain tasks or not? And is the computer more efficient or productive? And then they're subjective as well, right? So there's all of that. I think will always be there. What I think is interesting, maybe, or what I think would be interesting to talk about, I suppose, is your personal experiences in terms of the impact maybe it's creating for either clients you've worked with or in the work you do supporting women. Maybe we'll come back to that later, I suppose. But in how the impact is created in terms of, has it changed your perception of what value means? So do you feel that the value that these chatbots, AI tools, whatever they are, however you're going to describe them, they can create is far more than what you as a human being can do? And if so, I mean, what are the implications of that, I suppose, in the world of work? Because then I'll leave that second part of the question out. Let's start with that first one then. Is there a difference in the value point? Do you think there is a difference there from what you've experienced?
I think it's given human beings the ability to be far more valued, because instead of us doing all the boring stuff and slogging away, we can actually start to expand our minds and do more with our brains. We know that we don't use enough of our brains, right?
Okay.
And so there's a massive scope there. And so I think it's a joy that we have this opportunity. I'm just so thrilled that I'm actually living through this revolution. I mean, I lived through the internet revolution, and that was big enough. And now this one as well. Very fortunate to be doing that. And so I would say the more people can get on board as quickly as they can, the better, because working with robots, I shouldn't say that. It's just a term, but working with the machines, working with generative AI or with chatbots is going to be a fact. It's going to be a fact of business life. I mean, Klarna has just saved, I want to say 400 million, but it sounds so ridiculous. This year alone, was it that sort of figure? Are you aware of it?
No, I'm not, sorry.
Yeah, because that's through their customer service chatbots, and they're getting better results. The customers are happier, and Klarna's obviously delighted. I should think the shareholders are anyway. But the thing is, the big question we've got to ask ourselves then is, what is the societal impact on that?
I think that's one aspect. But going back to the world of work and especially, we'd attended some panel discussions and conferences recently where AI has come up a number of times. We wrote an article recently as well ourselves on some of that and our own thoughts on it. And one of the things for me, and I would like your thoughts on, Carolyn, is what you with your HR background, especially putting that hat on, I think, and change background. What does this mean for example, HR teams and perhaps managers in the workplace when it comes to productivity? So, for instance, does it change how HR interacts with their workforce and provides information? Does it change how managers request things from HR, etc., or how they interact with their employees in their teams? In your view, in those dynamics, what other kind of changes do you think are happening?
Right. Well, I think it presents the opportunities for those things, Arif, but I'm concerned that it's, we have to look to the people that will be using it. And typically HR is cautious, risk averse, and not really trend setting when it comes to technology adoption.
Right.
So I would say that curve's going to take a while. And, if we think about the bell curve of adoption, technology adoption, then really I think HR is not going to be at the forefront of that. But interestingly, they're extremely curious about it. I'm getting quite a lot of work now that comes along because of HR being interested to know more. But that's about being informed, isn't it? That's not the same thing as doing. And also HR is quite reluctant to give power to employees. And I think that is, and I'm generalizing, of course, here. There are a lot of exceptions, I'm sure, but the majority of HR practitioners are reluctant. And I think that comes from the environment in which we are schooled, taught, qualified as HR. We're taught to fear non-compliance, basically, and GDPR breaches, for example.
So it's So if we were to flip the script and thought of it as an enabler, like you're doing, I think, are there any particular areas in your experience where you think, if HR or managers or whoever were to perhaps utilize these tools or this way of work a bit more, they could see these type of changes in their working lives?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think productivity would go through the roof. I think retention would be hitting those dream targets. Absolutely. You'd have much more engagement going on. And as a result of the engagement, those other things come to you, don't they? As people get involved in things, they're trusted, your trust levels increase, your collaboration levels increase. And of course, you're empowered by this machine or this generative AI tool that helps you to solve problems really quickly, to brainstorm solutions, to think of things differently, and to flip the narrative,
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you so far. We've had a lot that we've talked about. Let's go for a break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about some other things around AI and maybe women in world of work as well. So see you after the break, everyone. Our next webinar will be coming your way on November the 19th, live on LinkedIn. We'll be joined by Chris O'Sullivan, a leader with over 20 years of experience in workplace well-being, to discuss how leaders can better protect their mental health. He'll share practical strategies to help leaders build resilience and thrive under pressure. To register, visit our website, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and hit that sign up button. See you there.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a good break. And Carolyn, so as we have talked previously about the impact on AI, of AI into the world of work, what we wanted to go to is, we've talked about it previously. I don't think that it's the same for everyone, right? AI is a technical topic, and there are people that obviously know a bit more about how it works, even though it's a difficult and very involved technical area. But there are people that are non-technical. We've talked about AI, I've talked about HR. So there might be people that will struggle a bit more in this era. And I would like to talk about the impact of that. As any revolution, people, unfortunately, some groups of people might be left behind. And I was wondering, do you see that happening in the new incoming era of AI?
Yes, I do, very sadly, TK, I do. I mean, the statistics tell us that there will be 83 million, is it 83 million? I think it's McKinsey saying 83 million jobs will be lost, but 92 will be created, 92 million will be created. So great. That's fantastic. So yes, the opportunities are there, and jobs will change, of course, and people will probably see jobs being much more skill-based and their careers being less linear. But there will, I think, it's just going to be unavoidable, I'm afraid, that as you say, during any revolution, during any mass change, there's always a group that suffers. And that is deeply worrying because, and I'm not talking about any gender issue now, because I think that really it's going to hit human beings as a whole. But I mean, look, I was buying a pizza the other day, and I went to my favorite pizza shop. And I bowled in, a bit hungry, went up to the counter and said, yeah, could I have a hot shot, please? You now know more about me than you did when we started, TK. Anyway, so then this guy, he'd only be probably about 16. He was taking my order down and he was really struggling. And I realized very quickly that he couldn't actually write. And he was looking to copy it from the menu, but he couldn't find it on the menu because he couldn't read. And obviously I felt dreadful. My heart went out to him and I thought, gosh, what a job, poor thing to be in here, trying to do this. It'll get busy soon. And all those thoughts went through my mind. And I was driving back. I thought, what's going to happen to people in this situation? I mean, I'm helping non-technical professionals, but obviously they're fluent in language, so they don't really have an issue. It's only themselves that gets in the way. But for some people, it's their entire social environment that gets in the way, isn't it?
So in terms of social environment getting in the way, that's an interesting one. So I'm wondering, what is it exactly that makes it difficult to properly use these tools and be a part of the revolution? What backgrounds do you think would struggle?
Well, definitely people who couldn't read and write.
Because although you can speak to the AI nowadays, but that's
you can, but you can't. Yeah, but I mean, it's true, and you could listen to the audio, but answer. But being realistic, as I'm struggling now to get people who can read and write fluently to use it, what chance is there of people who can't read and write thinking, yes, I'll have a go with that, beyond maybe just social media that they're using, to use it for their own career or in order to get a job. I mean, obviously the chap a story I related, talking about a very brave individual who's got himself out there and done that, but not everyone's going to feel like that, and not everybody's going to be encouraged, which is even more worrying. So I think you will have people falling between the cracks, as you do in every revolution, and there's a lot of people out there arguing, especially over in the States, arguing for a kind of welfare state approach to that, which may or may not succeed. I don't know. I hope
How would that
does.
work? It's something new.
Yeah, it's an allowance. It's basically an allowance. You'd be paid. And because there's going to be a lot of people out of work.
Basic income.
This is wave one.
All right,
yeah, basic income. I mean, this is a wave one, of course, and this is hitting the professionals first. So wave two is going to be the one that really hits more blue collar, I think. But for now, wave one is hitting the professionals, people who are used to being in work and not having to worry because they could just kind of rely on the degree and the experience that they'd had. But now, not so much. Lawyers, law tech is absolutely eating up the legal sector. And yet, of course, lawyers are still clinging to the idea that it won't take their job because their clients would rather interact with them. And they're right, they would. But what about all the other time that you're not going to spend doing the work you would have been doing?
That's true, right? I know some, legal professionals, and they express this exact same view. And I think personally, it's a symptom of denial. But moving on, because we don't want to be that grim, because what I think I know is your wonderful company is actually helping, and you're on a mission to help this situation. So what is it that Emmeline does, and how do you actually do your best to improve it?
Well, the first thing I do to improve it is I learn lots of all the time, and I'm very much an advocate of continuous improvement, as I know you are as well, as from an agile background. And for me, I take it very seriously. I've been doing sprints really with Emmeline and learning as I go, because of course I'm as new to this as many people. This is the beauty of it. It's a massive opportunity, and nobody can say to you, I know more than you do about it. Not
well,
now.
People can say, but would they be right? It's another question, I guess.
Let me put it this way. They can say, I'm an expert. I've got, they could, if they say they've got years of expertise in this, then basically that's a barefaced lie, because nobody has. Yeah. So that's probably a better way of putting it. But it means it's a big opportunity to get out there and have a go. Now, as you have a go and you learn, and I've done courses with Coursera and Deep Learning and things like that with Andrew Ng, because I think that you need to do that. You're learning as well yourself. Of course, self-taught is brilliant, but you do need, this is a technical subject, and you do need to make sure that you've got it right before you start telling other people how it works. So I've done that, and as I've done it, I've developed more and more myself and my own theories, and they've moved, and I keep iterating. And one of the things I started out thinking was that we needed to be very much gender focused. And now I'm realizing that while women are still very much a focus of my work in one area, it's not exclusive anymore, because you can't, it doesn't work, because if I'm about encouraging people to work together, to collaborate, and to be more productive, and to feel happier as well, by the way, and to feel more fulfilled and respected. That's what really matters to me. And the reason that I took up Emmeline so quickly and made it female oriented was because I could see that women were disadvantaged, and they still are, by this AI revolution. And there are reasons for that. But in terms of Emmeline growing and moving forward, it's now, it's not gender specific, but I do a lot of work with women.
Just to follow up on that, Carolyn, sorry. I think what would be useful to understand is, with the women you've worked with or do work with, what are the typical challenges you see when you do work with them? And how does your work then assist? I think it'd be nice to hear some examples or stories of the work you do, if you can share.
Yeah, I can share, of course. I mean, anonymously, yeah, of course. Well, for example, if I'm trying to encourage women to, starting from the premise that I'm trying to encourage women to use ChatGPT, just very simple. I don't talk about lots of different chatbots. I say, look, let's just start with this one. It's the most famous. Hit the decks in November 2022. It's still going. Use this one. If I say that, they'll say, well, what would I use it for? I can write an email with it, I suppose. Well, how dull and boring is that, right? So I say, well, why don't we talk about something that's really bothering you at the moment to see if we can't solve it using this ChatGPT? And they'll say, oh, like what? Like what would you say? What do you think? I said, well, is there anything you'd like to solve or do or produce right now? Now, if everybody who's listening to this podcast actually just thinks about that for a moment, the next point is, can it be done with AI is the next question. But of course, people are already in the zone. They're thinking about ChatGPT, so they're thinking about text anyway. So the sort of things that people will suggest, or women have suggested to me, is, okay, well, look, my daughter is currently setting up a little business for herself. And I've been trying to persuade her to write some marketing material so that I can hand it out to people on her behalf. But she never gets around to it. So she said, can you help with that? I said, yeah, of course. But I'm not going to use ChatGPT for it. Let's use something else. Let's use Gamma. So we skip over to gamma.ai, GAMMA, and it's free to use. There's a free trial. Well, it's not just a trial, actually. It's a free account. And she just put some things in there. I encouraged her to write a couple of lines about what her daughter does or what this business is. And it spat out this most amazing, colourful, professional presentation. And she was just blown away. And she said, oh, my goodness, that's it. That's fantastic. I'm going to use it. How do I do it? I said, well, it's just for you to download now. All you have to do is download it. And then she said, can I share it? Can I send it? And I said, you can do what you like with it now. And she'd done it in, literally minutes. I'm talking maybe 7 minutes at the most. And that was getting what she really wanted. She'd got 90% of it within about 2 minutes.
That's
so,
fantastic.
it was finessing it that took a bit longer.
I think what would be interesting to understand is just in that example, for someone like her, if she hadn't had your support with how to use that particular tool, what do you think she would have done, and what would have been the cost to her? I mean, like, how would she have solved her problem without your help and what you did there? Just to understand.
Well, I think she would have kept nagging at her daughter. That's the impression she gave me.
Yeah.
That can't have helped the relationship a lot, I don't expect.
Yeah.
Instead, they got something productive very quickly.
Yeah.
She was probably able to get some interest for her daughter, from friends or whatever. And before you know it, maybe her daughter was able to launch that business. It was it was a little happy story, really, wasn't it? When you think about it like that.
Yeah.
Very productive.
And as you said, these are particularly women, but it doesn't have to be, who aren't as tech savvy. Am I right? That's what we're talking about.
Yes, not tech savvy at all.
Yeah.
Not tech savvy at all. Just using it just like anybody else would.
I think if we were to replay that scenario in a workplace setting, just a bit of a thought experiment. I'm sure in your own experience as well, Carolyn, in your working life as well, you've come across women who maybe have been disadvantaged in their career progression because of that same issue or related issues around not knowing the right things or not knowing how to do things in the way others do, etc. Do you see any parallel there between those two scenarios?
Well, not really, if I'm totally honest.
Okay.
Because Arif, I think for me, I think women are perfectly capable of doing this just as much as men are. I think men are just as capable of doing it as women are. I don't think that's the gender thing at all there. I think women are less likely to try it, possibly, because, and that might be the issue, that they're less likely to try it. So men will start using it quite quickly, and then they will, of course, become the experts, and they will influence its design and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the danger. That's the problem. Whereas if women become active consumers, as I'm hoping they will, they don't need to become, they don't need to get into design leadership or AI techies or anything like that. You can just be consumers. Just do what this lady was doing and just use a product. And if you like it, tell someone else about it and get used to doing that. And then eventually, when you're making when you know a lot more about it and you're helping in your own office to solve a problem using it, using generative AI, then if you need a supplier of some sort, you will be asking the right questions of that supplier because you'll know what you're talking about.
That's the important thing. Yeah. And I guess, what really got me interested is what you said, that not even making it gender specific, but there are some people that are less likely to try. What do you think holds them back?
Well, I don't know how this will go down, but women tell me, and I see them being super, super busy. They're juggling so much stuff. Look, I don't have young children. I'm not caring for elderly parents, all that sort of thing. So I don't have the same demands on my time, but I still find myself very busy working very long hours. Someone said the other day, it's great being self-employed. I can spend my 90 hours however I like every week. We've all been there. So, we're all busy, but it's not the same as a child competing for my attention or an elderly parent requiring me to take them to the hospital or whatever it might be for medical care. Those kind of things compete to the point of exclusion of everything else. And I think that is where women find themselves sort of meeting themselves coming backwards. And when they look at this, they say, oh no, not just another thing. Not another thing. I can't do another thing. Yeah.
And it's another thing that you have to experiment with. And again, spending attention and time on exploring the tool that will maybe not immediately grant you the benefits. I totally get that, right? And the typical social burden of care is, unfortunately, most women. So I totally get that perspective. Yeah, it's a big thing. And, thank you for raising that. I think it's an important thing. So when you think about... because, again, we've talked about how it can actually help, how it can save time. right? But again, maybe it isn't accessible enough. So if there are AI experts listening to our podcast, which there are some, or people actually producing these tools, how do we make them more accessible to, for women, for people that have less time, that don't want to invest that much time in the tool, for them to actually get the benefit out of it?
Well, I was talking to a colleague called Tim Ellis, who has a great consulting business around transformation, digital transformation. And he put me onto Tony Ulwick and the jobs to be done, unmet needs theory, which I swear by now. I love it. And I would recommend that to them. I'd say, have a look at jobs to be done and look at this through the consumer's eyes. Look at it through your customer's lens and just really try and understand what it is that they want from you, because then it becomes really easy. I think if you try to talk tech to someone who isn't listening, they're just not interested, then, do you know how I always try and think about it, TK? I always think when I'm trying to sort of understand a value proposition for something, I always think, and it's apology to accountants straight away, but I always try and think, well, if it was an accountancy situation, I would feel like that. So I'm going to pretend I'm a customer who needs some financial advice because I know nothing about accountancy and it really bores me. So I need to know, what is it that they could say that would make me listen? And if I think about it like that, and jobs to be done, what jobs have your customers got to be done? What is it they need to do? And how can you add value by solving that unmet need?
That's a really good question to consider. Thanks, Carolyn. I'm just conscious as we need to start drawing our conversation to a close. It's been an insightful one, and I was just to help us kind of summarize what we've been talking about. I think it would be useful to hear from you, to our listeners out there, women or otherwise, I think, is how would you advise someone who's fearful or maybe unsure or isn't feeling confident about leveraging these tools? What would be the first thing you would encourage them to do to get them to start feeling a bit more confident in giving it a go? How would you help them with that, maybe?
Well, obviously I'd say read my book, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Obviously, the ChatGPT Advantage. But look, so on a serious note, I think I would, that's exactly when I'd put myself in the position of, well, what if this was about accountancy, what would I do? Well, I'd go and find somebody who knew about it. That's what I'd do. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, in this situation, that might be a relative. I hear women say a lot, my partner uses it and swears by it. I hear that a lot. Right. So, reach out to your partner and ask them, well, okay, you keep raving about this thing. Can you show me what it does? Or could it solve my problem? People love solving problems and helping you solve problems. I know I do. Yeah. That's what I'd do. Ask them if they can help you.
Nice. Okay. That's a really good practical suggestion. I think anyone can try. Yeah. And I think the other thing I think to reflect or hear your reflections on, I think, is that wider conversation we've tried to have as well around the world of work and how the AI revolution is having an impact. What would you say to organizations, HR leaders maybe, or leaders more generally, about the impact AI is going to have on them and what they need to do to get prepared, mainly? So, what would you say to them?
Well, I'd say get to know what it does and what the opportunities are, and then make your own mind up, is what I'd say. We can't make our minds up unless we're informed. We shouldn't try to second guess something we're not aware of. I offer training on this, and I'm sure other people do too, but I'm told I'm quite unusual in that I offer AI training for non-technical users in HR, because that's my background, HR. And so, by all means, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'd be more than happy to help. We've got some courses. I've got a course coming up on LinkedIn Learning soon, but it's not specifically for HR, but it is generally for because LinkedIn wanted it to be for everybody, so that's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do more specific ones for HR, but they tend to be in person. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's an exploratory, isn't it? This is when you can use all your wonderful agile skills, isn't it?
So be informed and do look out there and be open-minded to what's possible and see how it can help you. That's the gist of the advice, isn't it, really?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
Thank you. That's great. And as Carolyn said, you can find her on LinkedIn.
We'll put her profile in the podcast notes, of course.
We will do. Yes. Thank you, TK. So yeah, thank you. And you have a book as well, you mentioned, which is out on Amazon. Remind our listeners again what it's called.
It's called the ChatGPT Advantage, Transform Your Life at Work.
Excellent. Thank you. So there you go. You can check out Carolyn's wonderful book there as well. Well, it's been a pleasure hosting you, a pleasure discussing all things AI, women, leadership, the world of work. We hope our listeners, you've enjoyed the conversation too. We certainly have. Thank you, Carolyn, for your time. Thank you, TK.
Thank
you. for co-hosting as always. And please do check out the rest of our episodes on your favorite podcast player if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe and like and leave us a review if you're minded to. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you at our next episode very soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.